Hello, folks. For those of you that have been here before, yes, I am in a new location, albeit temporarily, but that's not why you're here for this video, so let's get to it. Whether you're here because of the title or because you saw one of the videos I used to advertise this video, I know you're asking yourself one of the following questions. What does this guy think the Mighty Nein did wrong? Or what the fuck is this guy talking about? Well, it's simple. When Critical Role decided to have Marisha voice Beau and likely have Sam voice Veth, Not's original form, they made a mistake. But before I dive further into that, introductions! Hey folks, my name is VJ Harris. My pronouns are they, them, he, him, and something funny. I'm a full-time tabletop role-playing designer and professional game master. You might recognize my name from things such as MCDM Productions, Arcadia, Flea Mortals, or an Elfinor Cat Little Baby, volumes 1 through 4. Okay, introduction done, let's get back to it. Welcome back, let's go. Long story short, having two white people voice people of color, Beauregard is definitely, unquestionably, a woman of color, while Veth has less certainty than Beau, but would be assumed a person of color if randomly shown to people, or if she was in the real world, was the wrong thing to do, and it doesn't matter that the two of them played those characters. Long story long, though, we're going to talk about a few things. First, we are going to talk about these two being people of color. We are going to talk about the importance of representation. We are going to talk about the issues of white people voicing people of color in the voice acting industry. And then we are going to come back to the implications of the two of them voicing their characters in the context of The Legend of Vox Machina and just Critical Role in general. But before I get into any of those topics, let me make two things clear, because I know someone in the comments is going to say XYZ thing. First, yes, these are their characters, and they can do whatever the fuck they want with them. But just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. If you make that argument, I am going to link you to the timestamp where I say just that. Second, for those of you thinking, well, this wasn't a problem when she was playing Beau or when Sam was playing Veth, in the actual play, yes it was. Myself and many other people, people of color and white people, were talking about having a white woman and a white man playing characters of color. This isn't a new conversation, even if you're new to it. And while I no longer have my TikTok account where these were originally posted, it got banned, I do have the various videos here. Take a look.
Originally, I already answered this question in a video that I hadn't posted, but then I saw this other comment. And I wanted to talk about that too, right? Because first, let me explain why I haven't said anything about Sam. The reason I haven't said anything on Sam is I'm having a lot of conflicting emotions about it, because on the one hand, Sam's playing a halfling, not an actual human, even though that halfling does have skin tones that you could associate with a person of color. But on the other hand, halflings, half-elves, dwarves, pretty much just humans at this point, like as far as appearance goes, so still an issue. So I don't know where my brain is on that. But I'm also not against examining to see if I'm also playing into some type of misogyny here. I like Marisha, right? I like how while I have issues with her playing Beau, I like how she plays Beau. But definitely the fact that Beau is human is definitely why Marisha, I don't have any this person's full comment. Oh yeah, there's definitely a difference to that. I don't think white people should be playing people of color for public consumption, but the way Marisha is handling it is better than it could be done. Could be trying to role play through some oppression type shit, which would be completely inappropriate. And while the way Marisha is doing it is better than it could be done, I still don't like it, because again, there's a major issue in the tabletop role-playing in streaming industry of people of color streamers not getting the recognition they deserve in favor of white streamers, and not because they're inherently better, but because of white privilege. And so the fact that she's this white woman playing a person of color is just why didn't you just add a person of color to your table? Or why aren't you hosting games by people of color on your programming?
In regards to Beauregard being a woman of color, we could have a conversation about racial coding, how her playing the monk, the character's skin tone, and other design aesthetics determine that. But all we actually need to do is read a tweet from Liam O'Brien from May 23rd, 2021, which is linked in the comments. I received a few messages recently about a comment I made about creating Caleb as my character from our very first episode of Talks Machina for Campaign 2. I used the term exotic while describing Beauregard, a woman of color, which was a very poor choice given its context. I have a much better context of understanding exoticization now than I did 3 years ago, and would just like to take this chance to apologize sincerely. There you have it, folks. Beauregard is a woman of color. The only way we could have more confirmation is if Marisha said it, but Liam is good enough. Argue with your mama, because I won't be entertaining any arguments she isn't a woman of color, and we'll be directing you to the timestamp with the tweet. Now, Veth is a bit more dubious. There's no overt coding like with Beauregard, no confirmation from one of the cast members, but from a visual standpoint, people who don't know the origins of Veth, and if she was in the real world, people would read her as a woman of color. Sure, there are white people with her skin tone, sure. Is that who predominantly has the skin tone? No. On to why representation is important. There's two arguments for why it's important. The one we aren't going to touch on, that seeing people different from you helps you empathize and recontextualize the way you see the world and people in it. And then there's seeing yourself represented in media helps you form a well-rounded picture of yourself as it pertains to your identity. I know people, predominantly people who are constantly represented in media, will hand wave the importance of representation, saying things like, that shouldn't matter to people. You're weak if you need that. Well, at the end of the day, none of those opinions matter in the face of cold, hard facts. What exactly is media representation? An article written by the Arab Film and Media Institute states, strong and positive representation can build self-confidence in individuals. It offers them role models to look up to and people and characters to be inspired by, and reinforces that they are not lesser than. They can be the superhero, the doctor, the actor, or whoever they want to be. Now, if you have accepted that Beau and Veth are women of color, you might be asking yourself, why does the voice actor have to be people of color as well? There's two women of color on screen. Well, the answer to that is simple, because it can show people of color that they can have that career. This is illustrated in the last sentence from what exactly is media representation. They can be the superhero, the doctor, the actor, or whoever they want to be. In a fantasy show like the Mighty Nein, people aren't going to think, oh, I can be a badass monk fighting the forces of evil, but they can think, oh, this character is voiced by someone who looks like me, I can be a voice actor. In 2021, the World Economic Forum wrote a paper titled, Reflecting Society, the State of Diverse Representation in Media and Entertainment. The paper is 34 pages long, but we are going to focus on a very small section, a paragraph in fact. From childhood, we find our heroes and role models in stories and cinemas, on playing fields and television screens. The media and entertainment industry shapes us throughout our lives. It shows us which stories matter and what is possible for our futures. As US activist Marian Wright Edelman said, you can't be what you can't see. Even with seeing people of color on screen in fantasy media, that doesn't give them an idea that they can become the voice behind the characters they love, unless there's also people of color behind the scenes. Now, to talk about the racism in voice acting, first, we are going to start with some generalized statements. I will provide the sources to each statement. Dominance of white voice actors. One study examining 170 animated films from 1989 to 2019 found that white voice actors filled 82% of the roles, demonstrating a clear pattern of white dominance in the industry. No face, no race, racial politics of voice actor casting in popular animated films. Characters of color voiced by white actors. It has been a long-standing and widespread practice in animation for white actors to voice characters of color. In recent years, numerous high-profile shows such as The Simpsons, Family Guy, and Big Mouth have faced scrutiny and initiated recasting processes to address this issue. No face, no race, racial politics of voice actor casting in popular animated films. Disproportionate character types. Black voice actors are often disproportionately cast as animal characters, while white actors are more likely to voice leading people characters across all settings. No face, no race. Racial politics of voice actor casting in popular animated films. Fewer opportunities for actors of color. Actors of color face a systemic disparity in opportunities. For example, a McKinsey study found that in their first 10 years, emerging Black actors on average got 6 leading roles, while their white counterparts got 9, making it harder for Black actors to sustain a consistent income and career. Black actors get fewer choices to break out. Systemic bias in casting. The industry has long operated on the assumption of a default white voice, creating a cycle where white actors are more likely to be cast, build star power, and thus be seen as more marketable for future roles. No face, no race, racial politics of voice actor casting in popular animated films. Now, I'm going to read some excerpts from a number of articles and interviews that highlight the racism involved in voice acting. Hollywood is beginning to take accountability and action in terms of diversifying their casts for television shows and films. Amid calls for change, last month, white voice actors Jenny Slate, Big Mouth, and Kristen Bell, Central Park, announced they'd be stepping down from their roles as characters of color in order to allow voice actors of color to portray them. Now, according to a new piece from Vulture, a lack of Black voice actors getting work is indicative of a larger problem in the industry, which ultimately falls on its gatekeepers. It feels like the problem has grown in part because there has been an emphasis on casting big names over the right names. Voice actor and comedian Wyatt Cenac, who voices 2 Black characters on Nickelodeon's Fanboy and Chum Chum, says, "When we talk about systemic racism, when every top-level person is white, chances are that top-level talent is overwhelmingly white too." Amid calls for more Black voice actors, a few famous voices are taking on animated roles. The Root. At the start of the show, I reasoned with myself that it was permissible for me to play Missy because her mom is Jewish and white, as am I, but Missy is also Black, and Black characters on an animated show should be played by Black people, Jenny Slate wrote in a statement released on Instagram. I acknowledge how my original reasoning was flawed, that it existed as an example of white privilege and unjust allowances made within a system of societal white supremacy, and that in me playing Missy, I was engaging in an act of erasure of Black people. Ending my portrayal of Missy is one step in a lifelong process of uncovering the racism in my actions. Playing the character of Molly on Central Park shows a lack of awareness of my pervasive privilege, Kristen Bell writes. Casting a mixed-race character with a white actress undermines the specificity of the mixed race and Black American experience. A white actor voicing a Black cartoon character is a particularly vexing example of taking up space that Black people don't always have access to in the first place. If we lived in a fair and just world where everyone had equal opportunities for employment in any field, especially the animation voiceover sector, then any actor could voice any character. But the reality is that we don't live in that world, and obstacles disproportionately keep people of color from having the same opportunities as white people and prevent them from being employed at the same rate. And when the specificities of the Black experience are written into the narrative as part of the character's development, it's unfair for that to be erased in the production process. The last 3 quotes were from white voice actors resigned from playing animated characters of color from W Magazine. Representation remains an unresolved wound in Hollywood. Consider in today's production houses, it is primarily white writers who choose the words and write the stories of these Black cartoon characters, and white actors who bring them to life on the screen. The context is simple. You have an industry made up of white people operating together under a systemically racist paradigm and oblivious to any consideration for the lives and well-being of people of color. The art of acting is deeply personal. You draw on your innermost life experiences, including those which are traumatizing. Whatever character you play, even if it is a humorous one, reveals something about your inner life. When a white actor plays a Black character, the voice of a Black actor is muted. A Black actor loses a job, and the general audience is cheated out of an authentic experience. Since 2013, Society of Voice Arts and Sciences, SOVAS, has offered education, professional training, mentorship, and job opportunities for working voice actors. Diversity and equity are core to the organization's mission, and it's personal for co-founders and husband and wife duo, Joan Baker and Rudy Gaskins. Joan is an award-winning actor and voiceover artist whose career spans commercials, promos, and narration for TV, films, and video games. Rudy is an award-winning producer, director, and TV executive. Together, they advocate for a more open and inclusive voice industry. Here's the question from this interview. How do you advocate for diversity and representation for voice actors through SOVAS? Why is that important to your organization's mission? Rudy, We operate in a mostly white, mostly male industry, but our life experience has always fallen under the BIPOC experience, even before anyone called it BIPOC. Racism and the lack of diversity and inclusion, D&I, is a form of torture that we have personally lived all our lives. It is our history and our trauma. Sometimes it explodes in myriad ways. Sometimes it's the catalyst for creating a new opportunity. Systemic racism is a major obstacle, of course, so we maintain an intense, sustained work ethic to reach out to make sure BIPOC voices have a seat at the table, and to make sure we do not become complacent in a world where racism, bigotry, and white supremacy remain an active call to arms for the ignorant. SOVAS is neither a black organization nor a white organization that needs to be taught to integrate D&I into its policies and practices. SOVAS is the birth of the very thing that the D&I conversation seeks to create in the world. Here's another question. You founded SOVAS in 2013, years before the conversation about diversity in voice acting entered the mainstream. What changes have you observed in the voice acting industry between 2013 and now? Where's the industry headed next? Rudy's response: the diversity conversation has been slowly creeping into the world of voice acting, but the historically anonymous nature of the voice acting industry, together with very strong biases toward white males, made it seem like a fruitless cause. Voice actors, odd as it may sound, had no voice in these decisions. Agents and casting directors were voiceless too. In fact, whites were hired to do mostly everything, including roles that were meant to sound black and target black audiences. It was really the Black Lives Matter movement that gave everyone the moral and intellectual courage to speak up and confront inequality, racism, and bias. Today, if you stand up for equality, you will be heard rather than fired or otherwise marginalized. Producers who are morally motivated can speak up to their bosses, and that's what it takes. Agents and managers have more room to open up discussions on casting without fear of losing the business to someone who will look the other way. Voice acting no longer has the anonymity that once allowed for these unfair practices to go unnoticed. There is no question that there is a systemic racism issue within the voice acting community, where white people are receiving advantages based on their race, and people of color are being disenfranchised because of ours. Now, before we move on to talk about Critical Role specifically, I want to head off another couple of questions I know is coming. So if white people can't voice people of color, can people of color voice white people? Or can people of color voice characters of color for races they don't belong to? I am going to answer the second question first. It depends. In the context of the United States voice acting, the answer is no. We as people of color shouldn't be taking roles from other people of color. Representation is important across the entire board when it comes to various racial identities. On the flip side, let's say that there are people of color that are voice acting in a country that is pretty homogenous racially speaking. See most of Africa and Asia. It doesn't really matter if a person of color who isn't black or Asian, etc., does some roles in the country, because most of the roles will be filled by people who belong to said country. Now, the answer to the first question is going to make some people upset. Yes, people of color can voice white people. I'm going to give you an example I use to make people understand context before delving further. Note, the example is an extreme but obvious one, made to make sure you understand and for me to be able to point out when someone is being disingenuous, because the answer is obvious. Johnny kills Adina. Riley kills Philip. As of right now, we know that both Johnny and Riley are killers from the information given. Let's add some more information to that. Johnny kills Adina because Adina is mad Johnny ate the last Oreo cookie and tries to kill him. Riley kills Philip because he didn't do his dishes. Again, both Johnny and Riley are killers, but we would treat Johnny different from Riley, and no one would be accused of being a hypocrite because of the added context. What you should have taken away from that example is that context changes a situation. Now, let's go back to Past Me and listen again about why representation is important. And then, there's seeing yourself represented in media helps you form a well-rounded picture of yourself as it pertains to your identity. Now, we're going to extrapolate some things since there's not one collective study that shows all this information. Disney in Black and White, an analysis of race representation within Disney animated films from 1937 to 2021, shows that from the years listed, most of the characters featured were portrayed as white, 68.3%, whereas BIPOC characters made up 31.7% of the total. Results suggest that BIPOC characters were significantly more likely to be featured in supporting character roles, with white characters featured in both the protagonist and antagonist roles. A survey done by gaming website Diamond Lobby with over 100 games from 2017 to 2021 found that 42.2% of lead characters in games were white. The white male default, written by Emily Ward, discussed multiple studies. One from 2009 found that 80.05% of total characters from 8,572 characters were white. Zippia tracked the stats of voice actors from 2010 to 2021 and found that 56.7% of voice actors were white. All that to say that even if POC do get to play white roles, majority of white roles will still be played by white people, so white people can see themselves in the characters and the voice actors. Okay, finally, we have gotten to Critical Role specifically. Now, while the cast of Critical Role might not know the minutiae of what I am discussing, they certainly know the issue exists. On June 3rd, 2020, Laura Bailey posted the following tweet. Nadine's appearance wasn't designed when I was cast as her. It was created after we were already filming, but I should have done more once the design was shown to me. And no, I am not, nor will I ever again read roles that should be going to Black actors. And in a Q&A about the animated series Legend of Vox Machina, Matt had this to say.
This is crazy.
From Saros Animosity, when considering NPCs of different genders, Allura, Lady Kima, etc., are they going to be voiced by Matt, or will there be others brought in to voice these parts?
All by Matt Gabble. No. There are like a handful of characters that are very special to me that I might want to portray. Like, I mean, Gilmore feels very personal to me. So if he ever makes an appearance, I'd want that unless people are really outraged by that, in which case we'll see. There's a weird contentious element as, you know, me playing a person of color. But he's excellent. But we'll see. We'll see when we get to it. But honestly, I'm more excited to cast the characters that I've portrayed and find people that can do an incredible job for me.
So, bare minimum, Laura, Matt, Travis, and Marisha know about the issues of white people voicing people of color, and in the Legend of Vox Machina series, as far as I can tell, they put their money where their mouth was in casting voice actors of color. There are still possible critiques for the races of said characters versus the races of the voice actors, but that's getting away from the topic of discussion in this video. Jamon Sa-Ord was voiced by Mara Junot, who is African American. Jamon Sa-Ord, the soul of the Jeweled City, is the ruler of Ank'Harel, the central city in Marquette since its founding. Their true form is that of an ancient brass dragon named Devosa. In their humanoid disguise, Jamon Sa-Ord is a slender humanoid entity, androgynous and beautiful. Their skin is a deep-set, reddish-brown, smooth, and impeccable. Their features are extremely fine and delicate. Sean Gilmore is voiced by Sunil Malhotra, an Indian-American actor. Sean Gilmore, commonly known as just Gilmore, is a sorcerer merchant. Gilmore is described as a very handsome man with a slight paunch with long, thick, coarse black hair that he usually ties back into a ponytail. Recently, he has decided to grow out a goatee, which he keeps well braided. He wears what Matt Mercer describes as a wizard's tracksuit with gold-trimmed purple robes that open up at the chest, and various golden necklaces and medallions. My friend Angie says it best.
I pointed this out on Bluesky over on a mutual's post that it was easy to recast Gilmore. It was easy for Matt to give up the role of Gilmore because Gilmore was an NPC. When you recontextualize that to what it means giving a platform to people of color, you are only giving a platform to people of color as long as they are an NPC. If they don't have a prominent role, we can recast. But if they are part of the lead group of characters, then it's not worth it. And that's why it feels so disappointing. Because for a company that prides itself in representation and inclusion, at this point it feels conditional. And this is honestly like such a non-issue, right? There are worse things happening, but in a business where it's already so difficult for people of color to be casted in voiceover roles in any sort of entertainment, considering everything that is happening with, rollbacks on DEI and rollbacks on any sort of IP that platforms people of color or disenfranchised people. And like they have a slew of actors who are people of color that are listed as being part of the show. Again, as to populate the NPCs that Matt created. This reinforces exactly what people have been saying about playing characters who are people of color. This is the situation, this is the prime example of why that shouldn't be done. You create a character, it becomes popular, you become big enough to have the privilege to share this story with the world. And you chose, as a white person, to live in the skin of someone who's a person of color. And now you get to voice that person. And the thing is that this has been a long-standing conversation. They knew. I truly, fully believe that the cast of Critical Role, Marisha Ray, Sam Riegel, all of them knew that they could have platformed somebody, and they didn't, because it's more important for them to keep the aesthetic than to actually platform people of color.
To wrap this up, no matter how much you think it's fine for Marisha and Sam to voice their characters, no matter how much you think the origins of these characters negate the issues of representation and the racism in the voice acting community, you're factually incorrect. And it is a huge problem for a group of white/white presenting, Laura is half Filipino, people who call themselves allies to marginalized communities, who know about these issues and handle it correctly in Legends of Vox Machina, to mishandle this in the Mighty Nein. The issues of systemic oppression, racism, and disenfranchisement have to take priority over individuals' desire to do something that contributes to those issues. Hey folks, late addition to the video. So I'm sure some of you are gonna ask, well, what did you want them to do? What could they have done? Because I know a lot of you are gonna think, hey, it wouldn't be right for everyone else to voice their characters, but Marisha and Sam not be able to. And me personally, I think that is a perfectly fine solution for that. But for those of you that are like, hey, that wouldn't be cool, that wouldn't be all right, consider this. And mind you, this is an idea that a mutual of mine had. I can't remember which mutual, but I remember reading it. Is essentially none of them voice any of their characters. Pass the entire thing off to completely new voice actors, and essentially like open up more roles and opportunities for various voice actors, especially people of color, especially for the characters that are actually people of color. And then just kind of go from there, showing that they're like, hey, we love these characters, these are our characters, but we also love and support these other interpretations. That could have solved everything. Would there still be people that had a problem with it? Sure. But again, it would have solved both the issue of having white people voice people of color and the issue of people thinking it's not fair if everybody gets to voice their characters except for Marisha and Sam. But thanks for being here, folks. That's all for now. See you next time. Peace out.